Welcome to the City Council's October 12th regular City Council meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with City Council, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. Hello, my name is Drew Combs. I'm Mayor of Menlo Park for 2021. I'd like to introduce staff and City Council members present: Vice Mayor Betsy Nash, City Council Member Jen Willison. Staff present include City Manager Starla Joram Robinson, Assistant City Attorney Greg Rubens, and City Clerk Judy Herron. Council members Mueller and Taylor will be joining the meeting after the closed session ends. Next, we go to agenda review. Agenda review provides advance notice to members of the public and city staff of any modifications to the agenda order or any requests from City Council members under City Council member reports. Does the City Council wish to pull or modify any agenda items? I actually have some modifications, and then I'll go to the virtual dais. So we're going to pull from the closed session D1 and D3. So the labor negotiations and the closed session conference pursuant regarding public employee performance evaluation of the city attorney will be pulled. We will still accept obviously closed session public comment on those closed session items, but the council won't take them up. And then we're going to move up in one city council initiated items to above regular business, so that we can give the council who is advising on that issue, Genevieve Ng, an opportunity to not have to sit through the whole city council meeting. Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess it's pull L2 and L10 just to make brief comments. Please.
Right, with no other items being requested pull, those will be the changes for the agenda this evening. Closed session, City Clerk Herron, do we have any public comment on closed session items D1, D2, and D3?
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on tonight's closed session item, C1, closed session conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code 5495.6 regarding labor negotiations with unrepresented management, city attorney, and city manager. D2, conference with legal counsel for existing litigation. Or D3, closed session conference pursuant to Government Code 54957B1 regarding public employee performance evaluation of the city attorney. Please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. This will be the last call for public comment on our closed session items D1, D2, and D3. Seeing none, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Herron. With that, the City Council will now adjourn to closed session and reconvene this regular meeting immediately following closed session. I think Mr. Rubens, the Assistant City Attorney, could you provide us a time estimate on at least your portion of closed session? I know you cannot make any guesses as to how long council members will talk, but how long do you think you will?
My report will be 1 minute.
Okay.
Less.
So then let's say 20 minutes for the close. Let's make an estimate that the city council will adjourn back here in regular session in 20 minutes. Thank you. So we're trying to connect with the council member Mueller. But while that's taking place, why don't I reconvene the meeting, since the first portion of it is reading through some proclamations. And maybe by the time we get through the end of the second proclamation, Councilmember Mueller will have joined. So I'd officially like to reconvene the October 12th regular city council meeting. I'd like to reintroduce staff and city council members present: Vice Mayor Betsy Nash, Council Member Cecilia Taylor, and Jen Willison. Again, I believe Councilmember Mueller will be joining us shortly. Staff present include City Manager Starla Jerome Robinson, Assistant City Attorney Greg Rubens, and City Clerk Judy Herron. City Clerk Herron, would you please provide instructions to the City Council and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor Combs. And again, echoing a welcome to our regular meeting of October 12th. At this time, we ask that the City Council remain on screen, engaging their own webcams and microphones for the duration of the meeting. Staff will engage their webcams and microphones when making presentations or responding to City Council questions. For members of the public who wish to speak on an item on tonight's agenda, after the mayor calls for public comment, we ask that you engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you can press *9. I would also like to announce that we are still amongst recruiting for our independent redistricting commission. For more information, you can visit menlopark.org/redistricting. You can connect with myself, Judy Herron, the city clerk, or any of our city council members can get you in touch with all the right people to get you involved. Appreciate your time, and that does conclude my introductions at this time.
Thank you, City Clerk Herron. Okay, with that, we will. I will ask this City Clerk to call for public comment on proclamation items I1 and I2. And
before we go to proclamations, can we do the report out from closed session this evening?
My apologies. Yes, Mr. Rubens. Yes, please report out from closed session.
Very short. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very short here. There's no reportable action out of closed session tonight.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on our proclamations, I1, Proclamation Recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month, or I2, Proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. And for Shabanya, when we get to I2, I will promote you to panelist, so you'll be able to engage your webcam and microphone. But Mayor Combs, I believe, will be reading the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation first. So again, if anyone wishes to speak on items I1 or I2, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. Right, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Herron. We'll start off with the proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month, which in the state of California is referred to as Latino Heritage Month. Whereas Latino Californians are a diverse group of 15.6 million people with roots stretching throughout North, Central, and South America, and many trace their heritage to the original indigenous communities of Latin America and Africa. And whereas Latino heritage is rooted in California's identity, with almost 4 in 10 Californians identifying as Latino, and where the majority of Latino immigrants are from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala, throughout the entire year, but especially during Hispanic or Latino Heritage Month, we honor and celebrate the state's Latino community. And whereas throughout California history, our Latino communities have fought inequalities and injustices, shaping the state's social, political, and economic landscapes, and that legacy continues today. We recognize and are grateful to the Latino Californians who help keep our neighborhoods, communities vibrant and prosperous. They are teachers and business owners, scientists and soldiers, farm workers and first responders, artists and activists, colleagues and friends. And whereas their extraordinary contributions to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic show that they have met the moment with an indomitable spirit and unwavering resilience. We also recognize that this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic has brought incalculable loss and despair to their communities. Coupled with generational health disparities, Latino Californians have faced devastating and disproportionate challenges. This Latino Heritage Month, we acknowledge these disparities and continue to pursue a more equal and just society that will ensure we all recover equitably from the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas diversity in California and Menlo Parks strengthen and Latino communities contribute to this strength every day, this month we honor the heritage of all Latinos in the state and city and celebrate the Independence Days of our neighbors, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Honduras, Chile, Nicaragua, Belize, and Belize. We urge all Californians and residents of Menlo Park to join us during Latino Heritage Month in honoring these remarkable communities and their essential contributions to our state. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Drew Combs, Mayor of California, on behalf of the City Council and the city, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Latino Heritage Month. And I'll just make the disclaimer, I think technically Latino or Hispanic Heritage Month goes from September 15th to October 15th. But in Menlo Park, we'll just give them a full month and we'll give them the month of October. So thank you. And thank you, City Clerk Heron, for all your work on that proclamation. Now on to I2, Proclamation Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas October is annually recognized as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and although progress has been made toward preventing and ending domestic violence and providing support to survivors and their families, important work remains to be done. Whereas domestic violence programs in California provide essential life-saving services for survivors, their children, and communities. Whereas there is a need to provide education, awareness, and understanding of domestic violence and its causes, as well as the individualized needs of domestic violence survivors. Whereas approximately 40% of California women experience physical intimate partner violence in their lifetimes, and women 18 to 24 years of age are significantly more likely to be survivors of physical intimate partner violence than women in other age groups. Whereas domestic violence affects people of all genders, sexual orientations, ages, racial, ethnic, cultural, social, religious, and economic groups in the United States and here in California. Whereas the marginalization of certain groups in society, including undocumented individuals, 54% of transgendered and gender nonconforming individuals who have experienced domestic violence in their lifetime, and people living with disabilities who have a 40% greater risk of intimate partner violence than those without. Whereas approximately 4 out of every 10 non-Hispanic Black women, 4 out of every 10 American Indian or Alaska Native American women, and 1 in 2 multiracial non-Hispanic women have been the victim of rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. These rates are 30 to 50% higher than those experienced by Hispanic, white non-Hispanic women, and Asian or Pacific non-Hispanic women. Whereas domestic violence is the 3rd leading cause of homelessness among families in the United States, having a significant economic impact on women at an estimated 8 million days of paid work loss in the United States each year as a result of intimate partner violence. Whereas children exposed to domestic violence can experience long-term consequences, including difficulty at school, substance abuse, behavioral problems in adolescence, and serious adult health problems. Whereas all survivors deserve access to culturally responsive programs and services to increase their safety and self-sufficiency, and all communities deserve access to culturally responsive prevention programs and initiatives to improve overall community health and safety by challenging the societal norms that perpetuate violence. Whereas Menlo Park recognizes the vital role that all Californians can play in preventing and one day ending domestic violence. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Drew Combs, Mayor of the City of Menlo Park, on behalf of the City Council and the city, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And here to say a few words is Shabana Ansari. Thank you and welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council Member, and the members of the public. Thank you very much. My name is Shabana Ansari. I'm a resident of Menlo Park. Today, I stand here as an advocate for victims and survivors of domestic violence. And thank you for adopting the proclamation to honor October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I represent Maitri, an organization devoted to serving victims and survivors of domestic violence, and want to take a few moments to talk about an epidemic that is pervasive in our homes, cities, state, country, and all over the world. Domestic violence is an ill that exists in all communities, irrespective of culture, religion, sexual orientation, financial status, and immigration realities. We have been living through pandemic since 2020, raging fire and climate change induced extreme weather in California. Whereas these circumstances have turned many lives upside down, we remember the most vulnerable victims and survivors of domestic violence. Increased requests for interventions and legal remedies over the past few months have shed light on the ongoing need for resources. Last year, in a single day, 76,586 individuals reached out to seek help with domestic violence related help. And in California, the number itself is 6,000 people a day. There has never been a more pregnant time for prevention-focused activities. State-based responses, community-based organizations, and members of the community in general, we all have our parts to play. The need for comprehensive plan to address domestic violence in our communities is urgent, and we thank the city of Menlo Park for providing much needed assistance in many areas, as well as requests to stepping up the effort. I request the city council to consider the following. One, enact and support policies that address intersectional approach to addressing domestic violence, homelessness, pay equity, poverty reduction, to name a few. Support funding for domestic violence service provider at the federal, state, county, and city levels. Rethink law enforcement responses to crisis situations with a special focus on stopping brutality against people of color, evaluate and improve language access at city facilities, offer training on cultural responsiveness to various local government employees and agencies, involve non-governmental organizations as thought partners while planning city activities, uplift the voices of the minority groups whenever possible as they lack representation in committees and other policy-making spaces. To the community members, I urge you to recognize domestic violence as a pressing issue, exemplify healthy relationship for the children at home, elect leaders and policies that contribute towards building a just and equitable future for all of us. And I thank you for all your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ansari. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, with that, we're on to our next presentation and proclamation. A presentation on the update on the Menlo Park Community Campus. Here to make the presentation, the council is Acting Library and Community Services Supervisor Rondell Howard.
Hi, Mayor Combs, how you doing? Hello, Council. So just a quick update that I have here for our Menlo Park project, community campus project that's going on. So demolition for the Menlo Park Mpcc project site has begun. Demo started September 16th, and it started with the senior center, community center, our youth center, the pool, and the pool house. Everything has been demolished to this point. And the demo work will continue through the month of October to prep the site for construction of the new facility. With that being said, construction notices have been distributed throughout the community by Level 10 construction that starting in September, residents may see some jackhammering, increased truck traffic to and from the sites. Residents were also informed that construction would only take place during approved work hours, and access to Kelly Field and Beechwood School will still be maintained. The construction group, Level 10 construction, is working closely with the Beechwood School to with the representatives there at the school to keep them informed and maintain impacts that may be to the school. So they've been in close conversations with them regarding any new updates. Also, for the residents, the The project website is up and it's available on the city's website. So info is updated, will continue to be updated to help keep the public informed about all the activities that's going on taking place with the demolition. Demolition will proceed in such a way to repurpose and recycle reusable building materials to the greatest extent feasible. So for example, all concrete will be grounded and recycled and placed as an underlayment in the new facility and the parking area. All steel will be sent out, resmelted into new steel. Also, all building materials will be sorted, tracked, and reused, recycled in accordance with the city's zero waste policies. With that being said, all trees are marked and preserved and will be carefully protected. So we don't have to worry about the trees being dismantled or misplaced. So those things are, the trees are being taken care of as we speak. And so those are kind of the updates with the whole demo that's been going on. Mind you, again, demolition will be going on through the month of October. Like I said before, just to prep for the official construction of the new facility. With that being said, what is going on with all the services that were there during the time? So we do have interim services that are being offered to the community. And so during the construction, the Belhaven Youth Center has been temporarily relocated to a portable facility situated in the western end of Kelly Park. So near the basketball courts, if you guys are familiar with the area, there is a huge white portable there now where the Belhaven After School Program resides. Not only the Belhaven After School, but as well as summer camp will be held there as well. So for after school program services are still being maintained. Actually, our services are actually full. We have a wait list going on. Some recreation classes that were previously offered at Onetta Harris site, such as a picture you see right now, which is our Aztec dance group, are being held at the library, the Belhaven Branch Library. So classes are currently being held there, as well as via Zoom. So we have Zoom classes as well that's still being hosted. And then also classes are being offered at the Arriaga Recreation Center as well. So still moving interim services for the Onetta Onetta Harris Community Center. It's just been relocated to the Belhaven branch momentarily. The Menlo Park Senior Center has been relocated to the ARC, the Arriaga Family Recreation Center, with additional space they use in the main library over there for their annex, the annex space, pool tables, things of that nature. But all classes for our seniors are being held right now at the Arriaga facility. So classes are still going. We still have our as you can see, yoga. They have the luncheon is still going. And a host of other classes that's still being held for our seniors. Aquatics Program will continue to be held at the Burgess Pool. So any aquatics questions or any aquatic services, you can go to the Burgess Pool House and get the same services that were there at the Belhaven side. And just a quick update, the existing Kelly Park athletic field, track, restrooms, tennis courts, basketball courts will remain open throughout the duration of the construction. So those are still available for everybody. There's a safe entrance. We've constructed and put in a new walkway for residents so they can be safe, and for our Belhaven after school kids that come from Beechwood. So there is a walkway for all pedestrians, field users that bike and walk. So still safe entry to the back. Also, the new facility, once the new facility is complete, of course, we know there's going to be a new recreation center, gymnasium, a new senior center, dining hall, after school program, after school facility, fitness, aquatic center, a new library, teen space, maker space, community meeting rooms, among a bunch of other new features and amenities. So when the new facility is up, please be aware that we will be having everything back there. Just to update you as well with the new facility, once it's created and once it's finished, the new facility will be all electric, will include solar panels. It will generate reusable energy to be used on site and to be constructed to the standards that will allow and be designated as an emergency shelter if anything was to happen when the new building is up. So it will be a emergency site or emergency shelter at that time. And so we're looking forward to this new facility being open 2023. It's not set in date when, but 2023. And then on my last slide, as you see here, again, you can see the website where you can get more project info on the demo. And then also we wanted to also let everyone know, save the date for groundbreaking, which are still in the details being worked out, but Saturday, November 6th for our groundbreaking. So when we start the official building of the official start of building the new facility. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. And I believe this is your first presentation before council. So first, great job. It went quite well. So thanks. Now we'll go to the city clerk to call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item I3, presentation update on the Menlo Park Community Campus Project, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. So this will be the final call for public comment on item I3, update on the Menlo Park Community Campus Project. And our first speaker will be Pam Jones.
Hello, Mayor Combs, council members, and staff. I'd like to thank Mr. Howard for that update. I feel like I've been hanging out over at the center watching all of the demolition occurring. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any further comments from members of the public on item I3? Seeing none, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Right there. Thank you, City Clerk Karen. Are there any comments from virtual dais or questions for Mr. Howard? Mr. Howard, you did so well. You left the city council without questions. That they should give you a raise for. I'm just going to say that. Anyway, again, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, for the update. And it's lots of good progress happening. It'll be great to be out there on November 6th for the official groundbreaking. With that, I'm going to actually, before we go into the study session portion of the meeting tonight, I'm going to go and recognize Councilmember Mueller, who's going to make some comments.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. This evening, I just wanted to take a moment early, and usually this is something that we'd say in council member reports, but given the circumstance, wanted to go ahead and share now. This evening for our council meeting, I'd like to remember Grace Steinmetz. We lost Grace at the age of 18 years old and attended her memorial yesterday on behalf of the city. Grace spent her 18 years surrounded by the love and warmth of her sisters, Emily and Fiona, and her parents, Bill and Gabrielle. Grace was blessed with the love and support of countless friends and families. Her blue eyes and bright smile lit up every room. She loved to dance and sing. She attended the Menlo Atherton Cooperative, Las Lomitas Elementary School, La Entrada Middle School, and graduated from Woodside High School in 2021. She was a student in the TRACE program at Sequoia. Her family is especially grateful to all her teachers, her para-educators and buddies at AYSO VIP Soccer, SNAP, at Dance Center for the Arts, and the Stanford Kids with Dreams, and everyone who touched her heart. Grace will be forever remembered for the joy she brought into all our lives. Thank you, Mayor Combs.
Thank you, Councilmember Mueller, for that remembrance for someone who was beloved in our community. Thanks. Now we'll move on to the study session portion of the meeting. Study sessions are an opportunity for city staff to introduce an item that will require policy direction from the City Council in the near future. City staff will provide a brief presentation. I will then call for public comment. After public comment, the City Council will discuss the matter interactively with staff. The City Council will not take an action on items addressed in study session. The City Council may provide direction to city staff for preparation or of additional analysis or information necessary when the item returns to the City Council for action. The study session item is to provide direction on purchasing options for renewable microgrid electric vehicle charging and solar thermal pool heating for the Menlo Park Community Campus project. Here to present the item is Sustainability Manager Rebecca Lucky.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. Good evening, council members and members of the public who are in attendance. I'm Rebecca Lucky, the Sustainability Manager for the city. And tonight I'm going to go over options with the City Council on purchasing a clean energy package for the new community center that you just heard about for energy infrastructure. And just to give some context about this, so as much of the community already knows, Facebook has provided a generous offer to build a community center in the Belhaven neighborhood. And earlier this year, there were additional sustainability enhancements that were included as part of the project. And although Facebook's offer and building of this facility does include some of the highest standards from the U.S. Green Building Council and sustainability, there's always that opportunity to push a little further and incorporate additional sustainability measures. And so part of that agreement was that the city would dedicate staff resources and funding to make that happen. So I'm going to launch into the purchasing elements of this aspect of the project. And so the consideration for tonight is to consider a direct purchase for the clean energy infrastructure package. So in the staff report, there wasn't a direct recommendation because we were behind the scenes crunching numbers and working on what this would look like in the different kind of funding and financing options. And so really the clean energy package is looking to procure three elements. The first being the foundational part, which is installing solar photovoltaic panels on the rooftop of the new facility, as well as carports in the main parking lot and in Kelly Field. And the solar would produce clean energy on site to be used during the day. And so a certain added amount of solar is also being incorporated so that it can be stored in a battery for use during the evening and nighttime hours, which helps reduce cost and again guarantees that clean energy is being used at this site. And as was mentioned in the previous presentation, that it is going to also help to provide energy during an outage or in an emergency during a short period of time. So another element of this project is including solar thermal pool heating. And this is a little bit unique because we maxed out on the amount of solar that's needed for the energy consumption at the site for the buildings. And so this would really help reduce the amount of heat pumps that are needed and also help reduce the use of fans that are needed for the heat pumps to help quiet the area around the pool. And with the solar thermal pool heating, we're using basically aluminum piping underneath the existing, where the solar panels will be in the carport. So it'll heat the water and circulate it. And so that helps reduce the energy load. So another aspect of this project is incorporating 27 electric vehicle charging spaces at the site, and that would also utilize the solar and the battery storage that's on site to power the stations. So the purchasing options include a direct purchase or a 20-year power purchase agreement known as a PPA. And this is typically done through a third party. So the vendor who designs, permits, obtains the permits, and ultimately installs also provides financing from a third party that the city can access. We've done this in the past through the Alameda Regional Procurement project. It was back in 2012. We were able to get very good pricing and discounts using a PPA because we procured it with other agencies. So the procurement highlights of this package, they include, so we've had a procurement process going on since earlier this year, and a preferred vendor has been selected after extensive review by staff. And we also had a consultant come on board to help us with developing the RFP and the design elements of the clean energy package. And so we do have a representative here, Byron Parker from Tma, that can answer any technical questions about the RFP process or the PPA. And we also had the Facebook team involved and the Menlo Park community campus electrical design team as well, in helping to identify a preferred vendor. So I do want to make note that the negotiations and the design elements and the pricing are still being finalized. This is very typical during this type of process. So what's in the staff report and what's in this presentation is by no means final, but they're pretty close. And so tonight's direction will really help support staff in finalizing a contract for your consideration to award in November. And a PPA, when this was looked at as part of sustainability enhancements for the community center, a PPA was originally scoped for this project. But again, after further review, staff thinks it would be advantageous for the city to consider a direct purchase. So there are a couple of advantages to a direct buy. I mean, first off is the energy savings. So the savings that the city would receive after the return on the investment is about almost $7 million between year 15 and 30. So the expectancy of this project is over 30 years. Under a PPA would be less. The savings would occur after 20 years, and the savings would be around $4 million in energy savings. The other advantage of a direct buy is avoiding any construction delays, because sometimes there are changes needed in the design, and that results in recalculating the financing model. And then that could take time, and there is a goal to maintain the project schedule for the community center. And the other advantage is reducing impacts on staff time to negotiate, review, and approve of a PPA, so that we can maintain focus on other city council priorities. So I will say, when we did this last time, it took about a couple years to get through the PPA process. Part of that is because we were part of such a large procurement process with other agencies, but it does take quite a bit of review. It doesn't mean that we can't do it. It just means that we may need to reprioritize some things that we're working on in order to ensure that you're getting the best PPA terms and pricing. So the differences between, or the cost differences between direct purchase and a PPA financing model. So I'll go by each of the clean energy package elements, starting off with the solar plus battery storage microgrid. So to direct buy this element of the project, it's anticipated to be up to $3.5 million. And if it's leased under a PPA for 20 years, there's an implied interest rate additional to that direct buy of 4 to 5%. For the solar thermal pool heating element of the project, the direct buy is up to $850,000. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been able to negotiate a reduced pricing with the preferred vendor. It was originally priced out at 1.1 million. If it's leased under the PPA for 20 years, under the previous purchase price, the rate of interest was 6 to 7%. And for the last element of this package, the 27 electric vehicle charging spaces. So we did a bit of analysis that we could access some deep discounted rates offered by Peninsula Clean Energy, PCE. And the cost for all of the stations, that includes 3 fast chargers and a couple of the level 2 chargers would be able to operate in an emergency situation. So the total cost for that is $290,000 using PCE if the city purchases it outright. And on top of that, we would receive a rebate back from PCE around $110,000. So then that brings that total cost down to $180,000. If it's leased under the PPA for 20 years, it's pretty expensive. The implied interest rate would be 12 to 13%. It does include a replacement of the stations at 10 years. So one thing that we've all learned through this process is that charging stations do get used and abused, I guess, over time. And so they tend to need replacements anywhere between 5 and 10 years. And we did look at the model if we had to replace, so if we use the PCE discounted rates and we had to replace them in 10 years, it would still be more cost effective for the city to purchase the EV charging stations. And the last thing I would just note about PPAs, there's typically options to buy the infrastructure. A lot of public agencies do this when they enter a PPA. They'll buy at year 7 or year 14 when there's not as much upfront capital that's needed, but it's just enough to experience savings and a return on the investment. So the staff recommendation is to directly purchase all elements of the clean energy package, and that would total between $4.6 and $5.8 million. And the general fund could be used for this. The city does have sufficient unassigned fund balance of 6.5 million in the general fund to be able to do this. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucky. And I know it's definitely not your first presentation before council. City Clerk Karen, can we call for public comment on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item J1, provide direction on purchasing options for renewable microgrid electric vehicle charging and solar thermal pool heating for the Menlo Park Community Campus Project, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. So this will be the final call for public comment on item J1, our study session this evening. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Karen. So bringing it back to the dais, open it up for council discussion, questions. Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say, I think it makes sense financially. And also we would get the benefit of more control over project timing and staff resourcing to go ahead and do the direct purchase. And then also to use the available unassigned balance of the general fund. So I would be supportive of the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Ms. Lucky, and maybe I missed this. So was this, were these costs identified initially as a part of this project? Obviously, part of it is being covered by and I'm talking about the entire, community campus. Part of it is being covered by a corporate sponsor, shall we say. And then obviously there were always going to be city obligations, and certainly the pool and other things. Was this identified as an obligation on the part of the city from the beginning? And was it sort of itemized at this amount?
Yes, so it was considered an obligation of the city when it was scoped out, and when we first initially looked at this and presented to City Council a feasibility analysis on this. I know it was some time ago on it, and I think the pricing, from the original feasibility study has changed, a bit because the scope includes other elements. There was differences in EV, so it was our initial pass at it. But I think as far as the pricing for the PPA, it's pretty close to what was shown in the feasibility study that was presented to the council, I think last year, from the bids that we got, and we did receive 3 bids.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Mueller?
Has Councilmember Taylor weighed in on this or seen this presentation at all?
I think she's seeing it now, definitely.
Is she here?
I don't. Mr. Assistant City Manager Pegueros.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. And to answer your question, Councilmember Mueller, excuse me. Staff did meet with the Mpcc subcommittee last week and reviewed this item. And unless I missed something, I believe that both subcommittee members sent the item to council, did not have concern about the direct buy presentation. Subsequent to that meeting, we did get more information, as Ms. Lucky not receive any concerns with direct buy, but at the same I did with.
Yeah, I think you cut out a little bit there, Mr. Figueroa, but we certainly got your point. Thank you. Councilmember Willison.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of the direct buy. My only question has to do with the funding source. I saw in the staff report, it talked about potentially using other funds, and we haven't talked about the budget. I haven't had a good look at funds lately. So just kind of what that picture looks like, and if we have to make a decision tonight about exactly which fund it's coming from, or is that something that could be brought back to us, or what the thoughts are about that.
There I am. Yes, Council Member Willison, if the council gives direction this evening to move forward with the direct buy, we will include this as part of the approval action in budget amendment. You can't hear me.
I can attempt to fill in. Sure. So I think what Assistant City Manager Nick Pegueros was going to communicate was that when we come back in November to have you consider awarding the contract, that we would look at various options, generally in the general fund, that would be the best use. And include that as a budget amendment as part of the project.
Okay. if there are no, again, like I think, yeah, I'm supportive of the staff direction on this. So if there are no other comments, then I'll just confirm with staff that they feel that they have the direction that they need.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. I do appreciate that. Yes, we have the direction we need to go forward. Thank you,
Great.
council members.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Miss Lucky and Mr. Piqueros. All right. With that, we'll move on to the public comment section of the meeting. Under public comment, the public may address the city council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the city council once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The city council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the city council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general direction. City Clerk Heron, can you call for public comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So if any member of the public wishes to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And our first speaker will be JC. JC, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you may address the City Council at this time for general public comment. It looks like that hand went down. So I will ask again for anyone wishing to provide general public comment for an item not on tonight's agenda to please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in, you may press *9. And seeing no hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Heron. With that, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Under the consent calendar, the City Council may take action to approve routine business items in one motion, unless a City Council member, city staff member, or a member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. City Clerk Heron, can you call for public comment on the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on our consent calendar items, L1, City Council meeting minutes, L2, the authorizing the mayor to sign response to the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury Report building greater trust between the community and law enforcement via the Racial and Identity Profiling Act. L3, adoption of a resolution supporting the city's shuttle program for application for the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant fiscal year 2022-23. L4, award a construction contract to Casey Construction for the 2021 water main replacement project for Haven Avenue. L5, waiving the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 1078, repealing and replacing Menlo Park Municipal Code section 16.86.025. Item L6, adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant for fiscal years 2021-23 of up to $350,000 from the County of San Mateo to implement the big lift at the Belhaven Child Development Center and to execute a contract to enhance services. L7, adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an MOU with the South Bayside West Waste Management Authority to implement SB 1383 short-lived climate pollution regulations. L8, adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an MOU with the San Mateo County for the establishment of an edible food recovery program. L9, receive and file the annual inflation project adjustment of 50 cents per hour for an approval of local minimum wage effective January 1, 2022 of $15.75 per hour. And to L10, receive and file the Climate Action Plan Progress Report methodology and goal clarity going forward and EQC recommendations. Please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. So final call for public comment on our consent calendar items L1 through L10. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Han. And so Vice Mayor Nash, you had some questions on L2 and L10, if I remember correctly, correct?
Thank you. Yes, I actually just wanted to make some comments on L2. I wanted to thank Chief Norris and the Police Department for their embrace of the Racial and Identity Profiling Act and their promise to use the data for the RIPA reporting and to find ways to improve community police relations. And I also wanted to thank my colleagues on the subcommittee for embracing this effort. And on L10, on the CAP, I'm speaking for the Council CAP Subcommittee, Councilmember Willison and myself. And at this time, we need to go ahead and file this report. That said, we do want to urge staff in the future progress reports to focus its efforts on specifically tracking 3 key metrics: cars, heaters, and water heaters, and on providing a much more concise report. And at this point, I would move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor Nash and a second by Mayor Combs to approve the consent calendar. Any further City Council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller,
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor,
Yes.
City Council Member Willison,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash,
Yes.
Mayor Combs,
Yes.
and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So we've gotten to I think the recess in record time. What do people feel about reconvening at 6:40? Or we can continue through the agenda. I'm open. Vice Mayor Nez, I see you're supportive of just continuing, or?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. So then the next item we'll go to is in one, because I brought forward the City Council initiated items before regular business. Let me bring my notes. Okay, so in City Council initiated items, in accordance with City Council procedures, CC 20-013, City Council initiated items, the following agenda items are to be considered by the City Council and can ask staff questions regarding preliminary scope analysis and resource requirements. After discussion with a motion and second, the City Council may take one of the following actions. Direct the city manager to prioritize staff resources to prepare a formal staff report for further City Council consideration and or action. Direct the item to an advisory body for preparation of a formal staff report with no additional staff support required. Direct the city manager to prepare a formal staff report for further City Council consideration as resources are available. Defer action to the City Council's annual goal setting process. So the council initiated item is in one, engage an outside consultant to conduct an independent 360-degree evaluation of the city attorney and independent analysis of legal billings for the current fiscal year and for the past 3 fiscal years, or the past 3 prior fiscal years. City Clerk Herron, can you call for public comment on this item?
Mr. Mayor, just I'd like to recuse myself from this item because it could affect our office. I'll just drop off the call and then come back on.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Mr. Rubens.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item N1, engage an outside consultant to conduct an independent 360-degree evaluation of the city attorney and an independent analysis of legal billings for the current and past 3 fiscal years, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you may press *9 now. So this will be the final call for public comment on our City Council initiated item N1. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Karen. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Legal Counsel Genevieve Ng and Legal Counsel Osman Mufti of the law firm Sloan Sakai, which provides personnel counsel to the City Council. So I brought this item, and so just to frame it again, without engaging into any substantive debate, what I'm asking the City Council to do is to direct the city manager to dedicate staff resources to preparing a report for consideration in connection to the hiring of a consultant to conduct a 360 performance review of the city attorney, and to conduct a review of city buildings, both historic and current. And that could be the same consultant if such consultants exist, or it might require two separate consultants if these two specialties are things that are generally not shared by one consulting firm. And so that is my request to the city. Some just historic background is there was a standard performance review element within the contract at the 6-month period within the contract between the city and the city attorney that did not have an element in it that provided for engagement with staff. It generally was exclusively related to the council providing feedback to the city attorney based on their engagements with the city attorney. And I think it's appropriate that at this juncture, we engage multiple stakeholders that engage with the city attorney in connection with the city's services, legal services. I do also think it's appropriate at this juncture to get some sense of, since the city has transitioned from legal counsel it had for decades upon decades to a different firm. I do think it is prudent at this juncture to also conduct an analysis of historic and current billings. And so that's my presentation or my proposal to council. I don't know if council wants to say anything additional, or if they just are here in case there are questions from the city council.
Thank you, Mayor Combs and City Council. I'm Genevieve Ng, and I feel that I've met some of you previously. Osman and I are here to answer any questions, but we really are mostly here to ensure that any substantive performance evaluation or any of the underlying reasons for the evaluation are not discussed, and those should be relegated to closed session, but really this item is focused on the engagement of city staff to explore engaging a consultant. But Oz and I are happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Yeah, and I would only before, and again, happy for my council, my colleagues' input, I would only ask that you allow me to reserve the right to make a motion on the item, since it is a proposal that I have brought to council under council initiated reports. And if there is again, I would just ask for that you would allow me to, after the council has done discussing it, to make a motion and to see where that motion goes. And of course, if it does not get the majority, then or if someone wants to make an amendment, I'm certainly open to that. But I would like to be able to make a motion, since this is an item that I am bringing to the city council. Are there comments or questions? Okay. Well, then I will make a motion. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. My question is how to include, and I guess I could have asked this question beforehand, but can we include some type of process or procedure moving forward to do an evaluation? Whatever those steps are, or
yeah, I mean, I think that, well, like, obviously, like I think, again, I will answer it to the extent to which I don't know if the question was directed at me specifically, but I'll answer it to the best that I can. I think certainly, obviously, yes, there can be some process for when it comes to, and this is actually something I've been thinking of, within the sort of city government sort of apparatus. There are two positions that report directly to the city council. One is the city manager, of course, and the other is the city attorney. I really do think it is a deficiency on our part that we don't have a standard process by which on annum per year that those individuals are subject to a full-on performance review, a 360 performance review that includes getting feedback from staff, and and obviously in the case of the city manager, the people that report to that person. I would, this is a little off topic, but as we engage in the process of looking for a new city manager, and obviously we'll find a city manager and conduct and engage in contract negotiations with them, I would like to see something like this embedded in that city manager contract. And I would like to see something like this, again, embedded in the contract with our city attorney going forward. I think that would be, again, the subject of contract and negotiation with both sides. And so I wouldn't want to, at this moment, sort of try to establish that. I think there needs to be, I think, probably a little bit more thought, and this could be a pilot. But again, I do think that it is, it definitely is something that we should have, where the council is engaging an outside consultant on an annual basis to conduct a full 360 review of the city attorney and of future city managers at the city. Hopefully that answered your question. I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Are you still with us, Councilmember Taylor? Did you have any other questions?
thank you, Mayor Combs. I'm actually looking at my notes. Just give me one moment.
Okay,
please.
yeah, sure.
Thank you. Mayor Combs. So that did answer my question. I think the other items were items that that council suggested that we did not discuss in open session. My other questions.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments from the council on this? Okay. Then I would like to make a motion that the city council direct this city manager to assemble resources to prepare a formal staff report to further consider this item, which would be, again, to conduct a 360 performance review, to hire a consultant to conduct a 360 performance review of the city attorney, and to hire a consultant to or to engage in outside parties, third parties, to conduct a review of legal billings for the city for the past 3 years. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councilmember Mueller. And so let's vote.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So I have a motion on the table by Mayor Combs and a second by City Council Member Mueller to direct the city manager to assemble resources to prepare a staff report to further consider the hiring of a consultant to conduct an independent 360-degree evaluation of the city attorney and consider hiring a consultant for an independent analysis of legal billings for the current and past 3 fiscal years. Any further city council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote. Oh, City Council Member Taylor.
Thank you. Mayor Combs, I just had a quick question, and that's about choosing the consultant. Would that be up to council or city manager?
Well, and I would see a scenario where maybe the city manager gave the council 3 options of consultants who engage in this work, and so that's how I. But to answer your question, I would see the council making the ultimate decision of which consultants are hired.
Thank you.
Councilmember Willison.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments regarding the looking at a more robust evaluation process for the council appointed positions in contracts and in the future and figuring that out. I do not think it's appropriate to restart an evaluation, and I will not be supporting the motion. I also don't understand the need for an analysis of the billing when the billings are public. So I will be voting no on the motion.
Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to respond to items that were discussed in closed session. What I am going to say, Mayor Combs, is that I want to clarify your motion, that your motion was to look at the last 3 years of billing and compare it to current billing. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a comparative analysis that I'm looking for, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Council, just in response to Councilmember Willison, I respect your stance on this. Information being public does not negate the need for its analysis. Lots of public information is analyzed every day. That's a lot of what government does, is analyze public data. So I don't find the argument particularly strong. But I appreciate that you disagree or you look at this issue differently. Councilmember Mueller, your hand is still up, and so I don't. Or were you done? Or okay, cool. All right. The city clerk, Karen.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So the same motion by Mayor Combs and a second by City Council Member Mueller. Understanding there's no further City Council question or discussion.
Yeah.
Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor.
No.
City Council Member Willison.
No.
Vice Mayor Nash.
No.
And the motion fails with the City Council members Taylor and Willison and Vice Mayor Nash dissenting. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk Karen. And just so we're closing this item, I want to offer my colleagues the option to make another motion if they so choose. Councilmember Mueller.
Mayor Combs, was your vote recorded for the record?
It wasn't officially recorded, but I think you skipped me, City Clerk Karen. But obviously, I was a vote in favor of my motion. Okay. All right. Councilmember Mueller, were you gonna? Okay, all right. Okay, so I think we're done with this item. Thank you to Legal Counsel Genevieve Ng and Legal Counsel Osman and Mufti. Appreciate all your work on this item.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll go back to the regular agenda. Let me just find my place in the notes. Okay, regular business. Under regular business, the City Council considers recommendation from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require City Council approval. The first regular business item is adopt resolution number 6671 to continue conducting the City Council and advisory body meetings remotely due to health and safety concerns for the public. Here to introduce the item is City Clerk Judy Herron.
Thank you, Mayor Combs, and apologize for missing the entire roll call vote on our last agenda item. For the agenda item that is before you now, this is in regards to Assembly Bill 361, which was signed into law on September 16th, and it allows cities to continue holding virtual meetings during any emergency proclaimed by the governor. Staff is requesting that the City Council adopt resolution number 6671, so we are able to continue conducting our legislative bodies, City Council, Planning Commission, and our advisory body meetings remotely. I would like to let everyone know that this does not prohibit any of these bodies from meeting in person, meeting virtually, or meeting as a hybrid. It just allows us to have the option of virtual and or hybrid. I do believe that is all the information that I have. Everything else is in the staff report. I'm happy to answer any City Council questions or go to public comment.
Yeah, let's go to public comment on this. City Clerk here.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item M1, adopt resolution number 6671 to continue conducting the City Council and advisory body meetings remotely due to health and safety concerns for the public, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. This will be the final call for public comment on regular business item M1. No hands raised. I also did want to mention one more thing to the City Council. This resolution adoption is required a minimum every 30 days. So you guys will be seeing this again. It will probably be put on our consent calendar, but of course, always available for City Council questions, public input on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk Herron. And so I did want to engage in a discussion under the guise of this agenda item with my colleagues about what are our thoughts on returning to meeting in person. It wouldn't actually be a return because I don't think this body as currently constituted has ever met in City Council chambers. So what are our thoughts? I know there have been a few or several communities on the peninsula that have the City Council have returned to in-person meetings. I think Woodside, I think Foster City, or I think a couple I've heard of have returned to in-council meetings. And so what are our thoughts on that? Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. I think that there's two different ways to approach it, and I'm not sure if you are thinking one way or the other, or just want to generally discuss. One would just be for council to be there and still have the community participate remotely, and the other would be to actually go back to full-on public meetings and in-person meetings. And I guess I would be interested in doing the partial meetings where the council was actually able to sit at the dais together and have discussions, but I hesitate until we see a little bit more data on and until kids can get vaccinated to actually go with full in-person meetings.
Okay, and so then you would at some point before vaccination are available to minors, you would be open to a council return with the public, a council and staff return with the public still participating remotely, correct? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could be also supportive of that approach also. I think we do have, my understanding, and I don't know if the city manager wants to come on, we do have the technology in place now, right? For or I think so, maybe I heard that incorrectly, for the public to participate remotely. Is that correct?
That is my current understanding. I think we're still testing it, but we are trying to be prepared to have the public have the option of participating remotely and in person. So that, because I think if we've learned anything during the pandemic, it is that we shouldn't require the public to come down to city council chambers to participate in the meeting.
All right, thank you for that, City Manager Rawson. I don't think City Clerk Herron, just so I don't forget, did I call for public comment on this item?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Combs.
Okay. So I would, and is there a need for council discussion? Because I know we did sort of adopt this less than 30 days ago. I wanted it here just because the last meeting was not one of much where there was going to be much public engagement or transparency. But I just want to confirm with either Mr. Rubens, who's sitting as a city attorney, or the city clerk, whether we definitely should act on this agenda item.
I think I'll start with it. And the clerk, I think, city clerk covered this. This is sort of an enabling resolution that allows you to have remote meetings, including the hybrid model that's being discussed. So I'd recommend that if you want to have that as an option, that you adopt this resolution tonight, and then maybe at a future meeting you can agendize kind of how a return to either a regular meeting or a hybrid meeting with public participation remotely or a combination of all those things might look like, because I think a lot of cities are grappling with how that's going to operate. And so tonight's agenda items are actually pretty limited. It's just to allow us to comply with state law and have the remote meetings continue. And if we don't do this, then you won't be able to have remote meetings any longer. So,
okay, okay, yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Rubens. Okay, so does someone want to make a motion here? And I think we can say that, like, sort of staff has heard where there seems to be a little bit of a council consensus, and so we can go from there. But does someone want to make a motion on this item? Okay, Vice Mayor Nash.
Sure, I move that we adopt resolution number 6671.
Cool. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor Nash and a second by Mayor Combs to adopt resolution number 6671 to continue conducting the city council and advisory body meetings remotely due to health and safety concerns for the public. Any further city council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor.
Yes.
City Council Member Willison.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Herron. All right, with that, we'll go on to M2 under regular business, request for a subdivision ordinance variance to reduce the front setback requirement for a single family residential property at 491 Meadow Court. Here to present the item is Assistant Planner Chris Turner.
Thank you, Mayor Combs and City Council members. I'm going to share my screen at the moment. All right. So thank you again. I'm Chris Turner. I'm an assistant planner with the Planning Division. Today you'll be considering a request for a variance from the subdivision ordinance for new residents located at 491 Middle Court. Let's see if this wants to, there we go. The property is a standard lot, meaning it meets the minimum lot width, depth, and area for the R1S zoning district. Because the lot is standard, a new two-story home is permitted by right, and therefore the house itself and its design is not subject to a use permit or discretionary review. Rather, the variance request being discussed tonight is for the proposed house to be constructed at 21 feet, 2 inches from the front, where 45 feet, 10 inches would be required per the subdivision ordinance. The subdivision ordinance gives City Council the granting authority for subdivision ordinance variances. For this reason, and since the project does not require a use permit, this project was not subject to review by the Planning Commission. In most cases, development regulations such as setbacks are governed by the zoning ordinance. However, the subdivision ordinance applies to existing lots where the front property line is located on the outside of a curve with a radius of 100 feet or less, or more simply put, pretty much every residential cul-de-sac in Menlo Park. For the subdivision ordinance, the front setback on a lot with this kind of curved frontage is established at the point where the minimum lot width applicable to the zoning district in which the property is located is met. This is demonstrated in this illustration taken from our subdivision ordinance handout, where number 2 is the minimum lot width and number 3 is the required front setback per the subdivision ordinance. In some cases, the front setback established by the subdivision ordinance is much greater than the standard zoning ordinance front setback. A variance can be granted to modify requirements if the strict read of the ordinance's requirements cause an undue burden to owners of the property and their development prospects. As I mentioned, the applicants today are requesting a variance from the subdivision ordinance to establish the front setback of their proposed home at 21 feet 2 inches, where 45 feet 10 inches would be required. Here we have the proposed site plan showing the buildable area on this lot. The darker blue area at the front of the property represents the standard 20-foot front setback established by the zoning ordinance for the R1S zoning district. The red area represents the front setback established by the subdivision ordinance. As you can see, the subdivision front setback is more than twice the length of the zoning ordinance front setback. The remainder of the blue areas are the standard R1S side and rear setbacks of 10 feet and 20 feet respectively. And finally, the orange areas represent other barriers to development, including an existing pool, which is proposed to remain, and a few heritage trees. This leaves a relatively small buildable area shown in white if the house is required to be pushed back to comply with the subdivision ordinance front setback. As you can see, the front of the proposed house would be outside of the zoning ordinance setback, but within the subdivision ordinance setback, hence the variance request. The subdivision ordinance requires that all three of these findings be made in order to grant the variance. The full text of the findings can be found starting on page 2 of the staff report. However, to summarize, the first finding is that the variance would be subject to conditions that would assure the request would not grant a special privilege to the owners. Staff believes this finding is met because the development regulations for the R1S zoning district would be met and standard conditions of approval would apply to this project. The second finding is that there are special circumstances, which could be the shape of the lot, that result in the requirements depriving the subject property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity. Staff believes the relatively narrow and curved shape creates an extensive front setback and therefore meets this finding. Finally, the finding that the variance rather than the letter of the subdivision ordinance carries out the spirit and intent of the title, which we believe can be made for this proposal due to the fact that the variance would allow more typical development on the site due to compliance with the zoning requirements. Therefore, staff's recommendation is to approve resolution number 6677, approving the variance to modify the subdivision ordinance front setback. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. City Clerk Karen, let's call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item M2, request for a subdivision ordinance variance to reduce the front setback requirements for a single family resident property at 491 Middle Court, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And our first speaker will be Adina Levin.
Sorry, I had a hand raised for the previous item and forgot to lower it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Siddharth Deb.
Thank you. I was under the impression that I would go. I think our developer wanted to say a few words before. I don't know if I should let that go, but I see my time going down, so I guess we'll switch the order. I'm one of the two owners of that property, so I just wanted to get a chance to first of all thank you guys for taking a look at this, and second of all, allow you to ask us any questions if that came up, and give you some background on us. We purchased the property almost exactly 12 years ago, and have been living there with a couple of kids, and then another came around. So now we're up to 3 kids, the youngest being now in kindergarten. And so we have a couple of things going on. One is that we have in-laws coming. We have au pairs we've had in the past. We don't currently, but we're thinking about that for the future. And so for example, when in-laws come over, they're staying in hotel because we simply just kind of grew out of our house. So we feel very privileged to be at the location that we're at, and frankly, we don't want to move. So what we want to do is, create the kind of a house that can fulfill all of our space needs while staying in the same kind of great location that we found here in Menlo Park. So that's what we're trying to do here. We hope, that in doing so, we're going to, not only improve our own living conditions, but also sort of invest in the neighborhood. And our intention is to make sure that we keep within within the kind of building standards and hopefully improve upon the way that our neighborhood looks. And yeah, so we're hoping that you guys can look forward, look favorably on the variance. And again, if you have any questions for us, we're happy to respond.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on agenda item M2. Seeing no further hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
I think that there is a one, oh, I thought that I could see one of the panelists' hands are raised. City Clerk Karen, I didn't know if
These, I believe, are the applicants and architect are with us for the project.
Okay. Did you guys want to make a comment? Please go.
Yeah, thank you for nice to meet you. Good evening, Mayor Combs and council members and staff. I did want to summarize, Chris did a great job of the presentation, but I did want to summarize a little bit more about the project. I'm Anna Felver. I'm with Thomas James Homes, the applicant, and I'm representing our homeowners who you just met, Siddharth Dev, who introduced himself. We're happy to have him on the call and happy to be working on this dream home for him and his wife, Celine. We do have, as Chris had mentioned, a court lot, 491 Middle Court. It does have a radial dimension width of 45 feet, 10 inches, and a depth of 132 feet, 5 inches. And because of the subdivision standards 1516, 110, our front setback needs to be the same as the radial width. So we have a 45-foot, 10-inch setback. And that diagram was great that Chris brought up. This does cut back the building area at least a third. It would be starting the home at the center of this lot, but at the end of homes that are on either side. So the left home, it would be really close to their rear exterior edge, and towards the house on the right would be close to their rear exterior edge, meaning that we would be, this home would be in place of and overlooking each backyard. And it wouldn't be compatible or fit with the alignment of the neighborhood and the neighboring homes. Also, the setback is very different than all the setbacks on this court. The homes, there's about 5 homes in the court, including ours, that have 20 feet to less front setbacks currently with their existing homes. So having a 45-foot, 10-inch setback would be significantly different than the pattern that is within this neighborhood in this court. So we are requesting a front setback variance, a reduction from the 45-foot, 10-inch to the 20-foot standard setback, or the 21-foot 2, which is in our proposed plans, to parallel the typical front setback required for this R1S district. This 20-foot setback, again, would be similar to the existing home that's on the property right now, and it would be similar to the other homes along the court. And would be similar, the front of the home would be similar to the front of the home on the left, and the back of the proposed home would then be similar to either side, the right and the left adjacent neighbors, which is what we would like to have. Neighborhood compatibility is very significant in designing a new 2-story home. And then Chris did mention, and I want to reiterate, there are 10 trees analyzed on and off the site, 8 trees are on the site. 3 of them are heritage and no trees are proposed for removal. And if you need to have any questions for us, I am here, as well as the homeowners, as well as our architect on the call, Jamie Matheron from Dahlin. And we have our VP of Development, Cynthia Thibault, on the call to answer any other concerns or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Felver. Mr. Turner, maybe you said this and I missed it. Have we, I know these variances should be considered independently and in and of themselves, but have we granted, and maybe you said this and I missed it, any variances on this cul-de-sac in the past? Or even recently, I was seeing that there was a house that's gone up there, at least somewhat recently. But I know it's at a different part in the curve. But I was curious about that.
Right. So on this particular cul-de-sac, if you want to reference the area plan in the staff report, I believe it's a sheet AP1 in the plan set, sort of gives the neighborhood context of this cul-de-sac. There are other properties that are subject to the subdivision ordinance front setback requirements. Notably, the property directly to the left is for 8-1 Middle Court. That's subject to the front subdivision ordinance front setback, but due to the shape of that property, it only comes out to about 24 feet. There was a building permit issued for that house earlier this year. So they didn't need a variance. The property directly to the right, 501 Middle Court, is not subject to the subdivision ordinance front setback. So that just is subject to the standard 20-foot zoning ordinance setback. 471 Middle Court is also subject to the front subdivision ordinance front setback, I believe of about 31 feet. The existing house though is built at about 18 feet from the front property line. So we haven't granted any variances within this cul-de-sac. It would seem a lot of the existing houses are a bit older. So either built before these regulations went into effect or annexed, after construction. So this would be the only variance in this cul-de-sac.
Right. And can someone talk through either you or the applicant neighborhood outreach?
I may leave that to the applicant.
It was to our knowledge that neighborhood outreach was done with city notification. One of the neighbors is Thomas James Homes at 481 Middle. So we are aware of the home next to us, and our homeowners are very much aware of that house going in. But we have not received through the city any comments.
Okay, but the extent of it was a city required notice. There hasn't been any other engagement. Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. I'm supportive of the variance. I'll go to the virtual dais. Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you. This is another question for Mr. Turner. On the first page of the staff report, it talked about kind of this situation with the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance and how you might come back. How prevalent is this? Like how often, how much of an issue is this in the city, and how would a fix kind of streamline this stuff? Because I am very much in support of granting the variance, and I just am curious how often this could come up, something like this.
Right. So it depends on development. The subdivision ordinance obviously applies to the entire city, and we usually see this come up in the cul-de-sacs within the city. But it depends on the shape of the lot. In a lot of cases, the angle of the pizza, if you will, is wide enough to where you meet the minimum lot width before 20 feet, in which case just the standard zoning ordinance 20-foot setback would apply. So we don't see this particular the extent to which this front setback is 45 feet. Sometimes we've 60-foot front setbacks per the subdivision ordinance. It's not too common, but we do see it every once in a while. As far as streamlining these sorts of developments, that would require an amendment to the subdivision ordinance, essentially saying revert back to the zoning ordinance regulations and front setbacks. So it could help streamline certain projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I see that I think the applicant's hand is up on the attendees list. I don't know if it got left up from the public comment or if he wanted to add something. I am willing to, since he sort of is the applicant, I'm willing, if there's something that he wanted to add, I'm willing to allow him to speak again.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So I'm returning to Siddharth Deb.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. I just pressed unmute.
Yeah.
I was just raising my hand because you'd asked if there was outreach, and I wasn't sure if that was how formal the outreach had to be. But we've certainly talked to every single person on the cul-de-sac, as well as some of the person behind us knows also that we're applying for a variance. So I think everybody, at least within like a direct contact of our home, knows about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deb. And that I mean, again, I know the formal outreach happens, my question was in connection with a little bit more of the informal, since you had mentioned that you were living in the house, and I know that from my days on the Planning Commission, that can have an immense amount of value in things like this. And so thank you for sharing that. Councilmember Mueller.
I just wanted to indicate it being in my district, I don't have any objections to this. I just move it forward.
Do you want to make a motion?
Sure, but can I have the language for the motion to move it forward?
Yeah.
With that.
Okay, good. Please go, City Clerk Karen.
So the motion as proposed by staff would be to adopt resolution number 6677 to approve the request for a variance to modify the subdivision ordinance front setback to allow the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence in the R1S single-family suburban residential zoning district at 491 Middle Court.
That would be my motion.
Councilmember Willison.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have a motion by City Council Member Mueller and a second by City Council Member Willison. As read into the record moments ago. Any further City Council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
City Council Member Taylor. I know she was having some technical issues. City Council Member Willison.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
And the motion passes with City Council Member Taylor absent.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Karen, and good luck with the project. Okay. With that, we'll turn to item N3 under regular business, adopt the Transportation Management Association Feasibility Study Final Report. This was continued from September 21st, 2020, September 21st, 2021. Here to present the item is Transportation Demand Management Coordinator, Nick Yee. if you could hold on, Mr. Yi, is there a desire to take a dinner break now? Okay, then let's. I got 7:09, so let's say we'll return at 7:30. Is that and I got them all prepared. Mr. Yi, is that okay with you? You're actually going to make the call for the council. Is it okay for us to take a 20-minute dinner break right now?
Yeah, that's fine. I love dinner.
Okay, cool. All right. So I'll see everyone back at 7:30.
Welcome back, Mayor, City Council members. Letting everyone return to our virtual dais. Mayor Combs, you may reconvene the meeting.
Right, thank you, City Clerk Karen. And yeah, Councilmember Taylor won't be returning. She is feeling ill and so has retired for the night. Okay, Mr. Yee, now it's back to you.
Let me just pull up my presentation first. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor Combs, council members. My name is Nicholas Yee. I'm the city's Transportation Demand Management Coordinator. I'm joined tonight by Julia Ween, who is our consultant at Steer Group. We're here tonight to give you an update on the Transportation Management Association Feasibility Study and are asking to the council adopt the final study report. Is Julia here? I'm not too sure.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Julia.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members. Thank you for providing us with the opportunity to present the results of our TMA feasibility study with you today. Nick, you can go to the next slide, please. So you may remember our presentation just over a year ago now in July 2020. We presented our options analysis and we determined 2 TMA models with which to move forward in the study. So today we'll provide a quick refresher on that since it was such a long time ago and discuss a bit of our process, which has pivoted a little bit because of COVID-19. So then we'll present our ultimate recommendations and discuss our recommended implementation plan to achieve all of those recommended actions. And as Nick mentioned, we will identify some next steps and do request that the council adopt the study today. If you want to go to the next slide, please, Nick. Great. So with that, we will start with just a background on the full project scope and the tasks that we've completed. And as you can see, we've had some pretty significant COVID-related delays here. So we officially kicked off in late 2019. We undertook stakeholder outreach across the city. That included one-on-one interviews with employers, drop-ins with small businesses, on-site tabling at some of the multi-tenant buildings, and then also an online survey, which we asked employers to distribute to their employees. Just a quick note that the survey wasn't a statistically significant survey across the full city, but it just provided us with some useful context to lead us through the rest of our options analysis. We also utilized the city's subscription to streetlight data, which is, it compiles big data from cell phone users and it outlines start and end points of trips. So we were able to look at 4 specific areas within the city and understand when and from where they were attracting the most trips to really get a sense of trip profiles across the city. We used that information in the next step here to evaluate 4 TMA models for the city. So that was looking at TMAs focused specifically on large employers, one focused specifically on small employers, one focused on all employers across the city, as well as a regional or sub-regional TMA model. So that's where we left you a little over a year ago, and we recommended moving on with 2 of those models, and we'll get into that as we go through the presentation. But just last step here, over the past year, we've been moving forward on the final feasibility study and the implementation plan, and the goal here is really to understand what the best model is for the city, discuss potential funding sources, and then outline what the city's role should be within the whole process. So if you want to go into the next slide, please. So I won't go too deep into the existing conditions because obviously lots of this has changed significantly since the research was originally undertaken. But I do want to highlight a few key indicators that we identified through the process that we think are still relevant now, and they've really continued to shape the way that our recommendations ultimately came through. So first here, generally, we heard from folks that they experienced challenges relating to transit connections, just particularly given the city's location at the edge of the county, it can really be difficult for folks to get from the northern part of the city to points further south. And then obviously we heard about challenges getting to and from the East Bay as well. We did also encounter a bit of duplication of services, so particularly relating to the city's TDM requirements, where, for example, we encountered a project that was required to offer a shuttle service, but their tenant also provided its own shuttle service for employees, and so there were, one shuttle from the developer that was essentially running empty because of that. So, a bit of duplication there, but potentially some opportunities as well, which we can get into later on in the presentation. And then lastly, through the survey in particular, we were able to identify that the services that folks indicated would be most useful to them were in many cases services that they actually already had access to. So I know that graphic on the bottom there is a bit small and blurry, but you can see the kind of top two responses there. 50%, over 50% of respondents indicated both that guaranteed ride home programs and incentives and subsidies would be at least somewhat helpful in changing their commute behavior. And again, we'll go into this as we get through the presentation, but those are both services that actually exist for free for Menlo Park employees, anyone that works in the city through the Commute.org program. So really to us, that indicated that there might not be a gap in TDM services, but more a gap in education and information provision, particularly for the small and medium-sized businesses who were most represented in the survey. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Nick. So based on what we learned in that existing conditions process, we undertook a review of those four models I listed and a baseline that was requested by the city. We looked at the expected cost and benefit through identified goals of reducing vehicle miles traveled and mode share citywide, and then engaging individual employees and engaging a high number of stakeholders or employers. And so through that process, the sub-regional and the citywide models were determined to perform best. And again, that's where we left you last July, making our way through the COVID pandemic, assuming that we'd be out of it a bit more quickly than we have been able to. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Nick. Obviously, as we know, the world has experienced some significant changes throughout the past 18 months, and there are really two major elements that caused us to rethink our approach over the past year. First, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. We know that employers who may previously have paid membership dues to a TMA are going to be a bit more cost conscious, again, particularly small and medium-sized businesses. And many employers are hesitant to commit to investing in TDM at all before they understand what their long-term office situations will look like. Just across the state in general, we've been seeing lots of hesitancy from employers to commit. And then secondly, I mentioned that the regional or sub-regional model was one that we wanted to explore. And at the time we presented to you in July, the Manzanita talks had been conducted, but Manzanita Works in its current shape and form had not been established. And so right now the Manzanita Works organization and the Manzanita Transit Program has formally established itself as a TMA that serves the region with smaller consortiums that provide opportunity sub-regionally. And so because of these two elements, we did have some concern moving forward with recommending the development of either a sub-regional TMA or a citywide TMA. Obviously, after Manzanita Works was formally established, it doesn't make sense for the city to explore the development of its own sub-regional TMA. And the city does have the opportunity to join Manzanita Works and join its local Ravenswood Transit Consortium as an employer, but it can't necessarily join on behalf of all the employers in the city. So that won't in itself cover the small and medium businesses that we feel really had that information gap. And then similarly, given the presence of Manzanita Work and Commute.org in the city, the creation of a third citywide branded TMA providing similar services just would ultimately dilute the message for employers and employees. TDM is something that's typically hard for folks to grasp if they're not used to it. And so coming from three directions at once just makes it a bit more complicated, and it can contribute to unnecessary duplicative costs. Finally here, the added uncertainty of COVID-19 really made voluntary membership to a new organization just a bit less of something that we could guarantee. So because of this, our recommendations today actually don't focus on the creation of any TMA model. Instead, they provide options and opportunities for partnering with the organizations that are already providing TDM services in Menlo Park. So really still focusing on achieving those same goals of reducing VMT, changing mode shift, and engaging stakeholders and individual employees, but through partnerships rather than through creating a separate organization. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Nick. So just so we're on the same page here, we are going to provide just a brief intro to both of these organizations. And again, just a caveat here, this is a quick overview rather than a fully exhaustive list of everything that these really great organizations do to support the city and the region. So we'll start with Manzanita Works. They are a nonprofit organization supporting workers in the Bay Area, and their Manzanita Transit Program focuses specifically on transportation issues. So they have convened membership-based and employer-led consortiums across the region. The Ravenswood Transit Consortium is the local consortium for Menlo Park. And these consortiums allow employers to collaborate more specifically on sub-regional issues. Additionally, Manzanita Works operates their own programs and services. So they had a recent shuttle pilot for essential workers. They participate in Caltrain Go Pass distribution and also undertake other transportation research and education and outreach. Some of their services are geared specifically toward consortium members and employers, and others are more widely available to the public. And then since they're a relatively new organization, they're still evolving and adding services. So they're exploring opportunities like a guaranteed ride home program and vehicle support. And then on the next slide, Commute.org is the TMA that serves San Mateo County specifically. They provide established services and incentive programs that are available for free for all residents and all employees in the county. So this includes a guaranteed ride home program, carpool and van pool, ride matching subsidies, a tri-transit program, and a bunch of other education and outreach programs. Commute.org is operated by a board of directors, and all but 3 jurisdictions in the county are currently represented. Menlo Park is one of those 3 jurisdictions not represented on the Commute.org board as of right now. So we'll move on, Nick, to the next slide. And I guess you can go to the next one after that too. We'll get into our recommendations. First, just wanted to give a quick note about the process we've gone through to get to these recommendations, again, through some of this pivoting. We presented to the Complete Streets Commission back in April. Originally, our recommendations were for a bit more detailed partnership structures with both Commute.org and Manzanita Works. And the commission was appreciative of the value of both of these organizations for the city and generally, approving of investing in TDM generally. But they did have some concerns about financial commitment at this stage, just particularly with so much uncertainty about the changing transportation landscape in the city and with COVID. While we did conduct research for this study, there is no doubt that habits and needs have just changed significantly over the last 18 months. And so the commission felt it would be prudent to undertake additional research before committing to financial investment on any of these recommendations. We did also use that commission meeting as an opportunity to jump off and continue collaboration with both Commute.org and Manzanita Works. So we held a joint meeting with both organizations in the city, continued supporting collaboration between them, and did also provide both organizations with the opportunity to provide feedback on our recommendations as we were putting them together for council. So from there, Nick, if you want to go to the next slide, we will move on to our recommendations themselves. We've grouped these into 3 major objectives. So these include first, endorsing and supporting regional and sub-regional TDM efforts. Second, positioning the city itself as an example of a robust employer program. And then third, ensuring that TDM support and education is available and accessible for all businesses in the city. And again, that really focuses on the small and medium businesses that we identified had that gap you want to go to the next slide, please. We can start with objective 1 here. It has 2 recommended actions. First, joining the Commute.org Board of Directors. So as I just mentioned, Menlo Park is the only city and one of only a few jurisdictions who are not represented on the board currently. And this action would involve identifying a city council representative and an alternate to participate on the board. There's also the opportunity to participate in advisory committees if council desires. It does not come with any direct cost to the city, aside from the board member and staff time monthly. And in terms of benefits, this action would help the city advocate for Menlo Park specific needs within the Commute.org community and help to increase collaboration with neighboring jurisdictions. The second action under this objective is to encourage employers and developers to participate in the Ravenswood Transit Consortium operated by Manzanita Works. So this involves endorsing Manzanita Works in the consortium, potentially thinking about including this type of recommendation in development, entitlement, and permitting processes for new projects. And again, no direct cost for the city here, as the employers or the developers themselves would be the ones to pay in to become members of the consortium. But in terms of benefits, the participation of other employers in the consortium is really beneficial for the city overall because it improves regional collaboration in general, and then it also increases the visibility of Menlo Park within the Ravenswood Consortium. All of this also, the more standardized we can get services to employers across the city really helps to better measure programming across the city, as well as we're looking to identify impacts at PDM. Moving on to the next slide and objective 2, we're focused here on ensuring that the city is setting a good example themselves by offering a strong TDM program to city staff. So the first action here involves promoting the current free services across the city. So that includes the Commute.org services such as the Guaranteed Ride Home program, its subsidies, bicycle and pedestrian support. So we've recommended that city staff regularly engage and consult with Commute.org staff just to ensure they're up to date on any current programming and to identify any further opportunities for collaboration. So some of these programs are currently promoted to city staff, some are less visible, and really just having a regular meeting with Commute.org to make sure that staff is on top of all of that. And again, no direct cost associated with this action, though we do anticipate some staff time may be directed to distributing information and material. Again, it would just help ensure that city employees are familiar with their options and they can better explore their non-single occupancy vehicle travel options. It'll also support education for smaller employers who may look to the city to get a sense of really what works well and how they might be able to shape some of their own programs and benefits. The next action, action 4 here, involves joining Manzanita Works Ravenswood Transit Consortium as an employer member. So this facilitates access to all of Manzanita Transit's member services for city staff. And as I mentioned in the last slide, really helps the city participate and kind of be at the table with the rest of the subregion. There is a cost associated of $40,000 annually, but it does provide really that double benefit for the city in both giving staff the access to the organization's benefits, and then also allowing the city to participate in that discussion that will impact the transportation direction really within the subregion and potentially more broadly because of Manzanita Works' larger organization across the Bay Area as well. And moving on to our last objective here, and this is ensuring that TDM support is available to all businesses. And we know that despite the fact that Commute.org and Manzanita Works are providing this great service across the county, their service areas and their size of their organizations make it difficult to ensure specifically that all of the businesses in Menlo Park have the education they need to really be able to take advantage of everything that's offered to them. So we've recommended that the city does invest in partnerships with both organizations, really to result in dedicated outreach and programming specifically for Menlo Park. So excuse me, in the short term, This involves, again, just city staff keeping in regular communication with both groups as they examine transportation landscape changes as COVID-19 continues to evolve and as they define some funding availability. But in the longer term, this would really result in some more formal partnerships. So this could look like fee-for-service or grant delivery work for specific topical studies or program development, or dedicated staff time spent specifically on Menlo Park outreach and education for small and medium businesses. And as this is a longer term action, the budget and the exact scope will depend on funding resources and potentially the result of additional forthcoming research as has been recommended by the Complete Streets Commission. But we do expect that this will help us really achieve that third objective of better education than a new TMA would. It's really going to be more efficient and help the city with some of those sub-regional partnerships that they want to address. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Nick. And you can go to the next one, actually. We've compiled our recommendations and placed them into a quick implementation plan that I'm going to run through. So we've split between short-term and then medium to long-term actions. So we recommend in number 1 here that we start out by implementing the recommended actions that are designated as short-term, which include low or no cost activities. So this includes joining the Commute.org board, supporting connections between employers and developers and Manzanita Works Ravenswood Transit Consortium, promoting free service to current city staff, and then also continuing to communicate with both Commute.org and Manzanita Works in more of a regular formal manner, which just may key the city into lower cost or lower commitment actions that they may want to take advantage of as well, such as bike share feasibility studies or more appropriate short-term projects. From there, we have included the Complete Streets Commission's recommendation for additional research across the city. This could take a few forms. It could be as extensive as a full market research study with purchased data or a pilot using trip tracking, trip logging technology, or it could be as a smaller scale. The Complete Streets Commission expressed some interest specifically about city staff and their interests. And so it could be more of a informal research effort or survey specifically of city employees to help inform what might make sense on a larger scale. The last priority here, short term, is identifying funding sources for future TDM investment. So it looks like I can't see the screen anymore. I don't know if everyone else is still okay.
Hey, Julie, I think we might have lost Nick. I'll try and bring up the presentation, but if you want to just continue while I get those visuals up.
Okay, I can share too if you'd like, but we're almost done. This is like our second to last slide. So the last short-term priority here we have is exploring funding sources. So the city has identified a few potential funding sources that do rely on further study or action. So that includes utilizing the planned shuttle assessment to help identify where shuttle funds may be able to be repurposed. Again, I mentioned at the beginning the duplication of shuttle services with private providers. And so thinking about where we could potentially pull some of those funding sources in to instead promote TDM citywide, exploring grant opportunities such as Caltrans planning grants, and then reviewing parking pricing and policy to identify further revenue streams. This is one that the Complete Streets Commission really rightly pointed out is probably not a great short-term study because of COVID and all the uncertainty of people, really wanting to drive in their own cars at the moment, but something in the long term that has a really nice tie to TDM and VMT reduction. So if you've got these up, if you want to go to slide 17 there, great. Yep, right there, perfect. So in the medium term, we know CCAG is currently undergoing a revision of their TDM guidelines, and so as the city considers their own, there's opportunity for adoption of requirements and recommendations that might support TMA membership. So again, thinking about, can we more strongly recommend membership in the Ravenswood Transit Consortium for new projects? And then also, can we reward or encourage additional collaboration with sub-regional organizations. And then from there, we'd recommend moving into the longer term actions, which really include membership in the Ravenswood Transit Consortium for the city as an employer, and partnerships with Commute.org and Manzanita Works that are aimed specifically at supporting Menlo Park employers. And those are really the two that do require funding sources, and that's why those are both listed as long-term. So with that, I know Nick was going to take that last slide on. I'm not sure if he's back. Oh, great.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm sorry, I think my internet just cut out on me at the first time. So thank you to Ms. Ween for continuing the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Heron, for pulling us up. I wasn't sure when to cut in or not. Just wanted to be polite. So just to sum up the great presentation that Ms. Ween had, essentially here are the recommendations in front of you today, Council. So as she mentioned before, it's a phased approach. So immediate short-term actions that we could take is one, joining the Commute.org board, of which I believe the executive director of Commute.org has formally reached out to the city of Menlo Park to actually join the board. I'm just not sure what the next steps are there exactly. And then secondly, support and provide connections between Manzanita Works and new projects and employers. And then third, having city staff expand upon all the Commute.org free services and having them be promoted to the other staff by my position. And then secondly, and thirdly, the next couple of actions will help us determine how to kind of take our steps forward for both the midterm and long-term actions. So essentially, we need to undertake some more research to better understand the post-COVID world and also identify funding sources for future activities and also appropriating those funds. So with those two in mind, then we can take some more longer-term actions, such as joining the Ravenswood Transit Consortium as an employer, working with existing TDM organizations such as Manzanita Transit and Commute.org to help invest in dedicated support in Menlo Park, and also maybe possibly looking at revising some of the city TDM guidelines to kind of enact some better code or better codify some of the language into the guidelines, since they haven't been updated in a few years and the landscape has changed. And that is our presentation.
Great, thank you, Mr. Yee. City Clerk Karen, let's call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item M3, adopt the Transportation Management Association Feasibility Study Final Report, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And our first speaker will be Adina Levin.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Adina Levin, Menlo Park resident, Complete Streets Commissioner. Speaking for myself, I might wind up reporting on some things that the Complete Streets Commission did in the process of giving these remarks. First of all, I want to really commend staff and the City Council for heading down this path. This is something that I personally have been very supportive and encouraging of for a long time, and the Complete Streets Commission has recommended this as well, in terms of being able to address our traffic issues, which are likely to come back as there's fewer pandemic restrictions in the future, and in the interest of addressing our climate goals by providing great options to reduce driving. This is a really good direction. In terms of the roadmap within the staff report, this is doing a few good things, including taking steps incrementally, including having the ability to learn from what the new commute and travel patterns are going to be, and understanding what new services are in order to be able to make good investment decisions. Certainly strongly support the idea of using existing organizations and existing shared resources rather than having a fairly small city like roll our own. So working with partners is certainly a great approach. And also in terms of updating our TDM guidelines, that is also a good idea, using CCAG as a baseline, but there are some of the leading cities in our sub-region have requirements that are stronger than CCAG has historically been. So we should be looking at the strongest programs in our area for things that are both comparable and things that will really do the best job of helping to reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce traffic, and helping with our climate. So this is looking like a good direction, and I will recommend that the council support it as an individual. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Mila Zelkar.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Combs and Council. This is Mila Zelka, CEO of Manzanita Works. We're a local nonprofit with a mission to support the welfare of workers and their families. First, I'd like to thank the city staff and STEER for their considerate engagement with our organization and with Commute.org over the past several months. As you've heard and read in public comments earlier this year, Manzanita Works and Commute.org working together has potential to complement and amplify the impact on our respective missions. Second, I want to highlight an updated letter sent to you just after 5 p.m. today from the Manzanita Coalition, commending you and encouraging your consideration of joining the Ravenswood Transit Consortium this calendar year, if possible, so that we can build momentum before people return to office. There are 12 signatories on that letter, and they include the Ravenswood Teacher Association, St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, Congregation Etz Chaim, and University AME Zion Church, who have congregants and members who are Menlo Park residents. And the other organizations have that as well, but I wanted to highlight those. Lastly, I would like to add that short of joining as an employer, the city is also able to sponsor or contract project-specific initiatives with us as a municipal partner. STEER has noted some of these options, including outreach to employers in your report. And it's something that you don't have to do as the 5th incremental stage as suggested by staff. You can actually do it now, concurrent with any incremental study that you do later. As staff knows, we first engaged in a conversation in April of 2018, talking about what if something like this could come together. And here we are, we have an opportunity to do this. We are honored that you would consider us, and our board chair, Pastor Coloma Smith, sends his apologies. He had to leave the call when the dinner break happened at 7:30, but we do welcome the opportunity to serve Menlo Park at your invitation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Justine Burt.
Good evening, Mayor Combs and City Council members. I'm Justine Burt, the Future of Work Program Lead for Manzanita Works. As Mila said, we're a nonprofit that works to improve the quality of life for workers and their families. And we have existing relationships with employers in Menlo Park, including the U.S. Geological Survey, JobTrain, Facebook, and the Ravenswood City School District. Manzanita Works was selected as a community-based organization to work with Caltrain to redistribute Caltrain passes in their effort to rebuild and diversify the ridership. With our focus on essential and service sector workers, we were able to extend these free Go passes to workers commuting to Menlo Park. The frontline workers at first couldn't believe we were giving them out. Once they filled out the online survey, and then I dropped off the passes, which are good through the end of the year, here are some of the things 3 local employees said. Jim from Trader Joe's in Menlo Park said, "Thank you so much. This will make a big difference in our household budget." Owen at Left Bank Restaurant wrote, "Words cannot describe the work you have done to bring some much needed relief to a beleaguered industry, but specifically the staff here at Left Bank. We are so grateful for the financial relief those Caltrain passes have brought to us. It's been a real game changer for us." And Brittany at Kepler's Books wrote, "My 2 staff members seem very enthusiastic and appreciative of the Caltrain passes. Thank you again." After 20 months of work on the front lines of the pandemic, these workers were delighted by this token of gratitude. It also is an honor to help Caltrain rebuild their ridership, which fell 94% during COVID. The mode shift programs and incentives we can craft together can be as creative as the stakeholders at the table. We welcome support from the city to continue and expand outreach to not only essential and service sector employees, but all workers who come to serve the Menlo Park community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Martin Sanders. Martin, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, sorry, I didn't
Okay.
realize. I apologize. I didn't realize I was muted. Mayor and fellow members of the Menlo Park City Council. I am Martin Sanders of the Ravenswood Teachers Association, which is part of the Manzanita Coalition. Thank you to the City of Menlo Park for your careful study of transportation management associations. As you have seen from the letter of support from the Manzanita Coalition, a broad-based group of local volunteer civic institutions, including the Ravenswood Teachers Association, support your endorsement of Manzanita Works Transit Co-op. Our members have benefited firsthand from the Ravenswood Transit Co-op, excuse me, where free long-haul tech shuttle buses helped get our essential workers to work last winter. In June, our Ravenswood City School District Board of Trustees voted to join the co-op as an employer. Today, we enthusiastically encourage you to join the Ravenswood Transit Co-op, where we can work collaboratively to create transit options that help our workers get to Menlo Park efficiently and affordably. As essential workers, our members, just like city staff, return to work in person earlier than many people. Together, this important workforce can help shape a commute we all look forward to when we return to our office in full swing in our economy. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on item M3. Seeing no further hands raised. Mayor Combs. Oh no, we're good. Thank you. Mayor Combs, you may continue.
All right, thank you, City Clerk Heron. So bringing it back to the virtual dais. Are there questions, comments? A motion?
Mayor Combs, I actually have a question.
Sure, please.
Is there any interest on my colleagues at looking at joining the Manzanita Coalition this year? It's actually a question for you all. So it's something that I would entertain if there was any support on council, but if not, I understand. But I would throw that out to you all.
Councilmember Willison.
This is a question for Mr. Yee or for staff. From your perspective, what does the city get? So if we give Manzanita money to join the coalition, what actually, but beyond the seat at the table, because that's what I've heard, and collaboration, but like what specifically, because I of course want to reduce trips and support TMA, but I'm still, even after all these presentations, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around is it like Go Pass giving out? Is it a shuttle bus that sometimes run? I still am having a hard time understanding what it is.
I don't want to mischaracterize the organization, so hopefully Ms. Ween can also chime in too, but I believe you would get, like you mentioned, a seat at the table to help have some input as the employer. The City of Menlo Park would be the employer in this case. You have access to their services such as the long distance shuttles. You would access to their concierge services, kind of the one-on-one support to help with commute planning. And is there anything else I'm missing that's pretty big there, Ms. Ween?
Thanks, Nick. I think generally, in addition to that, and again, this being a relatively new and evolving organization, they have some services that are available to the public, and I believe the Go Pass distribution is actually part of the general public offering. However, the long haul shuttles ultimately, I believe, are going to be accessible only by consortium members, and as well as new services as they are brought on board by the organization. It's likely that some of them will be available just to consortium members and their employees.
So where are these shuttles coming and going from? And this is our employees would be on these shuttles, or?
Yes.
So how do we know that these shuttles are going where our employees are, or this is where the whole seat at the table thing?
Exactly. I think, and again, as Nick said, because this is an organization that is evolving really quickly, I don't want to be the one to speak to exactly where their shuttle services will touch. But I think the idea is that having a seat at the table can really help ensure that the consortium is keyed into particular routes that might be more beneficial for city staff based on where they do commute to and from, or where they might be most necessary.
So is there like a commitment that any one given organization that joins is going to have 10% of their employees covered by one of these long haul shuttles, or is it just we join
I don't
it and
believe
then
so at this time, no.
So I mean, like I said, the concept is really compelling, and I guess it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg situation. But when we're looking at spending taxpayer dollars, and I'm not even clear how much use we're going to get. The one thing that wasn't more intriguing to me at this stage in the development was something really specific that I felt like we had more clarity, which I know there was like the bike share program. Because again, it's like being able to justify writing a check and making sure we're getting something. So I know there was like some $10,000 option for a bike share program. Is that something that staff feels is doable, ready for prime time? Or were your recommendations on kind of more of these financial commitments to Manzanita based on kind of waiting to see how these programs, giving it a little more time to develop?
I think it's a little of both. For example, bike share is a great concept, and we have at least kind of looked into it in the past, but it's just been stalled because we're, for example, looking at maybe partnering with like the city of Palo Alto in the past, or looking at what other cities were doing on Peninsula with like Lime bikes, but that kind of got stalled. So maybe this is a way to kind of rejuvenate that effort. But I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of what's the most prudent way to spend the taxpayer dollars. And I think some of the unknowns and my personal hesitancy is just more of, if we're not sure if people are really commuting yet, should we spend the money, or similar to maybe we should have this in play so that when the time comes, it will be ready to go. So we don't have to wait another year or so, just to kind of restart the process, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'd like to hear from my colleagues. Thank you.
Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I sort of see it is that there are a number of stakeholders in it to give it critical mass, and that if you don't, it's kind of like developing your own, helping to develop a shuttle line for your employees. Basically, we'd be helping to develop a shuttle line with other stakeholders for employees who are commuting distance. And if we don't invest in it, that shuttle line will never develop, basically. and so having a seat at the table is really about that's a phrase, but where it really is about is it's an investment in providing an alternative transit solution to our employees. And I like the fact actually that it's that Manzanita has really focused on trying to create equitable transit for those. I actually am supportive of trying to help build this effort. But if council wants to wait and see it develop, my concern would be that without other partners stepping to the plate, it may never develop. So I can see the argument both ways, but this is something that I would invest in.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. As Councilmember Mueller is also interested in Manzanita Works, I also am very interested. We both sat on in some of the earlier meetings with the Manzanita group, and it's a very exciting group. I just worry what we're actually, how it will work. For example, we have our employees are on, the staff is on every second Friday off, which means that they work longer hours during the day. How does all of this, I guess I'm interested, will this ever really work for us? Do we know where staff is commuting to from? How many people would be interested if there was something available? And I guess I always saw Manzanita Works. I'd love to do it for staff, but I always saw it more as, and I think we all did, citywide, rather than just specifically for staff. And I'm just wondering how all that plays at this point.
I think part of the challenge right now is we're still trying to let the dust settle a bit. And I think we as staff still aren't sure what the, I guess, quote unquote, permanent remote work policy is. So are we really going to be in the office, 3 days, 2 days, 4 days? And then that kind of might dictate how much we really need to commute, because if I'm only commuting 1 day a week, maybe I could just drive, no big deal, versus, the 5-day grind is going to make me want to take transit instead now. So I think that's part of the challenge there. I think overall though, it would be good to have something in place though, before we return to work, because it's the chicken and egg, where if we have nothing in place, then there's no incentive for the workers to want to come back, but then to, what do they really want to? How do we plan for that?
Councilmember Mueller.
Yeah, so my last comment on this is simply, I see that my colleagues still have questions about how it would work. And so what I would offer is, instead of approving it tonight, what we could do is direct staff to go ahead and sit down with Manzanita Works, try to get some of those questions answered. And if they're answered to council and staff's satisfaction, then it's something we could look at to move forward at a future date. But sooner than anticipated within the present staff report, assuming those questions are answered satisfactorily.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. That sounds like a good suggestion. I'm also wondering to staff, just how does the, before we just approved adopting supporting the city's shuttle program for application for the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant, realizing we don't have that, this is just an application, but how does that fit into all of this?
So essentially we would use that study to help with our shuttle program to kind of get an analysis of what's really working or not, because the shuttles have been in place for the last 20, 30 years, and we can only do so many adjustments ad hoc, and maybe we need kind of a comprehensive rework of the system, because kind of concurrently with Samtrans, they're doing their Reimagine Samtrans project, which is doing a analysis of their network, and that can serve areas that weren't previously served by Samtrans, which would theoretically either supplement or supplant our shuttles. So maybe having that study in play could kind of help with that, along with, actually understanding some of the needs in, say, the Bayfront area, where there'll be more housing, more developments and, offices. So how can the shuttles better serve that area? And maybe it's traditional shuttles, for example, or maybe it's more offering on-demand services, things like that, both for the commuters and also our community members or residents.
But isn't that just what we did with some of the steer study and some of this whole TMA study, or am I thinking of? It seems like we've just studied some of this and gone out to the employers, and I'm just wondering how else?
If anything, this is more, we've reached out to a few stakeholders on the employment side of things, but this shuttle study will actually be more comprehensive and also involve more outreach to all our residents and, vulnerable populations such as seniors, low income residents and all that. So it's a more comprehensive and it's more shuttle specific versus the steer study is more kind of high level, just working, kind of focusing more on like commute patterns in general.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see Chief Norris has joined the panel. Did you want to make some comments, Chief Norris?
No, I think I was moved up in here. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries at all. All right. Councilmember Willison, is there a motion there?
There can be in just a moment. Just to build off of Councilmember Mueller's suggestion, which I greatly appreciate with the questions. I guess another question for staff that I would like to explore also is how kind of this TDM, because TDM is a lot of things, not just shuttles. So, but how does the shuttle piece also fit in with Samtrans and with public transportation? Because it sounds like it's trying to model kind of like maybe what some of the high tech, like the Google, Facebook shuttles are using their shuttles and kind of providing that opportunity for city workers or whatever. But I just wonder how the role of public transportation plays into all that. Because if, like, again, if we're looking at a pot of money and investing it in a program that may or may not create a route that may or may not serve our employees, versus if there's Samtrans routes that we know go to where our employees live, and it might just make more sense to give people free Sam. I mean, maybe we already do. I don't remember what we offer, but just kind of how does this all fit together?
Yeah. Sorry, were you finished? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, go ahead if you want to respond to that.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'll give you a little backstory on all that. So essentially, before it was suspended due to budget cuts due to COVID-19, we had the Caltrain Go Pass program. So that allowed our employees to ride Caltrain all zones for an entire year for free. And then we also had commuter checks, which we still have right now, to help with either first and last mile transit connections to Caltrain, and also say if Samtrans worked out, then they could use Samtrans as like a local monthly pass, for example, right? And I think it's just about having options on the table at the end of the day. I'm not saying that the Go Pass is the greatest option or not, but that's one thing to consider because we did suspend it. Theoretically, the Go Pass served a lot of people or a lot of our employees, but the problem is if you lived in East Bay, it was useless, honestly, because you couldn't connect or you can use it at all. So in my mind, the long distance shuttles are a way to complement transit because, for example, you see studies from Samtrans saying, oh, we need express buses from the west side of San Francisco that come down to, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, and that would make it so much easier versus having to take the bus to BART to Caltrain. So it negates having to use all those transfers. Or, for example, maybe coming from the East Bay, we only have Dumbarton Express as transit right now. So maybe if you lived in Pleasanton, Livermore, somewhere further out where connections would be a bit, tedious, it would be a way to promote quote unquote transit. So that way you didn't have to actually use a car. So kind of like what Councilmember Mueller was saying, you might need that critical mass to get those shuttles to be at that, right ridership to actually make them cost efficient. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Wilson?
Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. And what was the investment in Manzanita Works that people were looking for to get a seat at the table to do this? Because I think it could be a very exciting opportunity, but working with all the other pieces that you've got in the mix as well.
I believe the last number that they quoted us was 40,000 per year.
And was that what Councilmember Mueller was thinking about?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. And so just thinking about budget implications, what is in the budget? How would this all work?
I'm not too sure of the exact budget. Maybe Public Works Director Nagaya can speak more to this, but essentially, for example, if we were to go with the Go Pass, for example, we would have come back to City Council for mid-year budget amendments after we could prove that there's enough justification for that ridership, for example. But other than that, we would just need to find the budget at the time and appropriate it, and then allocate it SO.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Combs, council members, Nikki Nagaya, Public Works Director. So I think Mr. Yee was correct in that kind of overall characterization. I think, and to Councilmember Mueller's earlier point, I think if the council has particular items that you'd like us to advance more quickly than what are in the recommendations from staff tonight, I think we can go back, speak with representatives from Manzanita Works. They've been fantastic partners to get us to this point. I'm sure we can work with them to put together a more specific proposal, a more specific funding plan, and how we would then bring forward the recommendations and then bring that back to you for consideration at a later time. So I think we would be happy to work on that if that's the direction, if there are elements that you'd like us to advance sooner rather than later compared to what were in the original recommendation.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Could we see the recommendation on the screen again, please?
I'll pull up the presentation, or unless Ms. Herron would like to do it.
Is this the correct screen?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Herron.
Thank you.
Councilmember Willison.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adopt staff recommendations with the addition of talking to Manzanita to gain more clarity about kind of specifics about kind of what we get for an investment. And I guess I'm looking for tangible information, if possible.
Vice Mayor Nash.
I will second that.
I have a first and a second. City Clerk Herron.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. Just give me one moment. I want to make sure that I have the wording of the motion correct. So I have a motion by City Council Member Willison and a second by Vice Mayor Nash to adopt staff's recommendations with the addition of staff connecting with Manzanita for clarity on the investment. Oh, I see not shakes, no shakes.
on like what you get for the investment. You get what tangibles?
What tangibles for the investment? Okay, thank you.
So we're not actually making the investment before we hear the tangibles, correct?
For clarity of the record, Nick, can you confirm that the recommendation does not include the joining of Manzanita at this time? If we're going with staff's recommendation?
Yes, we would join at a later time once we find out the specifics, and then we could appropriate the budget and all that.
Great, great. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't adding that without understanding the full recommendation. Okay, any further city council question or discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
City Council Member Willison.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
And the motion passes with City Council Member Taylor absent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk Karen, and thank you, Mr. Yee, and thank you, Ms. Ween, for the presentation. We very much appreciate it, and
Thank you,
for all the work that underpins the presentation. With that, we'll move on to, I think, our final regular business item of the evening, which is M4, approve and update to the Complete Streets Commission 2021-22 work plan and adopt resolution number 6674 to support seamless transit principles. Here to present the item is Senior Transportation Engineer Kevin Chen. Mr. Chen, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Combs and members of the council. Just double checking that you can hear me okay. Great, awesome. Seeing some nodding, so great. Thank you very much. So if you allow me a second to share my screen. Okay, and then while I'm navigating the slides, if Judy can confirm that you have been able to promote Complete Streets Commission Chair at DIN 11.
Thank you, Kevin. Unfortunately, I do not see Adina in our attendees list any longer. I'm not sure if she had to drop off or if she's rejoining.
Okay. My apologies. Let's see. The council can allow me to try to get in touch with the chair. I would appreciate that. So.
Of course.
Yeah.
I see that there's a hands raised and it's Public Works. Is that
Hi, this is Adina. I don't know why it thinks I'm Public Works, but this is Adina here on Zoom.
Perfect, Adina. I'll go ahead and promote you now. Thank you.
Great, thank you everyone. So in that case, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Great, if I can just have a quick acknowledgement that you can see the full screen of the presentation. Great, thank you very much. So again, good evening everyone, Mayor Drew Combs and members of the council. My name is Kevin Chen, Senior Transportation Engineer. With me tonight is our Complete Streets Commission Chair, Adina 11. We're very excited to be here with you tonight to present to you the upcoming Complete Streets Commission work plan. So while I'll be navigating the slides, our chair will be the one doing a lot of the heavy lifting of speaking and explaining the items. to you tonight. So with that, Chair Levin, if you want to go ahead and get started, and just let me know when you want me to navigate the slides.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. So the full work plan is in your packet. What I wanted to do was first to highlight the new substantive items in our work plan, which are in response to the goals that the City Council has set forth. So the first item in here is advancing the goals of the city's climate action plan by making alternatives to driving safer and more attractive. And what we have already been doing, as you have experienced, is looking at the implementation of the transportation master plan, looking at projects that help to reduce vehicle miles traveled, which are projects that provide convenient access with alternatives to driving. So in addition to this, this bucket includes providing input on major development projects by looking at them through the lens of transportation accessibility, especially bicycle, pedestrian, and public transportation accessibility. So making sure that our new developments have accessibility to non-driving transportation, as well as updating the transportation impact analysis guidelines to include multimodal study metrics. And as this has come up recently to City Council, I'm happy to have a subcommittee that is really working with staff to support staff in updating those elements of our guidelines. Moving on to the, if you can move back here, the next is in advising City Council on implementation of the Transportation Master Plan is at Council's request, evaluating the current process and procedures of the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, which is part of the Transportation Master Plan. So moving on, and also to a council request, continuing to support the implementation of the city's Safe Routes to School strategy, advocating for community engagement, program continuity, and engineering implementation. And there we have a subcommittee that is working on evaluating the current state of the Safe Routes to School program and making recommendations to City Council regarding that. And that is the end of the new work plan item. There's the second item about the seamless transit principles that I will move on to, but I can stop now. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, that sounds like silence, so hopefully that is good, and we'll move so I'll move on to the next item that the Complete Streets Commission has recommended. And this is actually something that Council Member Taylor had asked for it to be brought forward and brought through the commission. So this is requesting the City Council to adopt the seamless transit principles. This is a set of principles that, as I'll go through, support the creation of a more seamlessly integrated, convenient, and high ridership public transportation system. And so for disclosure, I brought this forward in my role as a Complete Streets Commission. I am also a part of the Seamless Bay Area nonprofit, which is supporting this initiative. So we can move forward and I'll talk more about it. So one of the challenges, and this is something that came up in the previous item, and I think is something that's really complementary to this item, which is that as a city, regional transit provides a challenge to Menlo Park, because we depend on regional transit to be able to achieve our goals, to alleviate congestion and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but we don't control regional transit. We're kind of at the mercy of the system as it exists, and the system as it exists is very fragmented. So the Bay Area Public Transportation has 27 different agencies, and currently and historically, the system hasn't been planned to run as a system, and each agency has their own fares, has their own passes, has schedules that may not work together, and so on. Next slide. And this has caused challenges for us as well as challenges for the entire region. And even before the pandemic, the transit system as a whole was not keeping up with the region's economy. And a lot of people want to use public transportation, more than they have been able to do so because it takes too long, is confusing, insufficiently reliable, doesn't go where we need to go. And that was, we heard some of this in the previous item. So next slide. And so what the, by contrast, a seamless customer-focused regional transit network would be strategically planned as a regional network to work as a system. We would have transit agencies working together to operate different parts of an integrated network, and service quality fares, discount schedules, wayfinding signage would be reliable and simple for users. And you can see in this map, you no longer see that patchwork of logos. There might be different operators going under the hood, but it acts to users as a single system. Next slide. So the initiative here is a common sense ask to support seamless transit principles. This is a set of principles like run all Bay Area transit as one easy to use system, put riders first, make public transit equitable and accessible to all, align prices to be simple, fair, and affordable, connect effortlessly with other sustainable transportation, planning communities and transportation together, and prioritizing reforms to help create a seamless network. So like having a Vision Zero policy or a complete streets policy, supporting the seamless transit principles does not in and of itself commit the city to any specific action, but next slide, it does join the city into a broad and diverse set of public and private entities that are raising their voices, supporting the creation of a seamless system. And I'll give you some examples. There are a variety of cities and other public agencies that have supported the seamless transit principles. In San Mateo County alone, the cities of Redwood City, East Palo Alto, San Mateo, Millbrae, Pacifica, and Half Moon Bay, Fremont across the bay, San Jose, that should be San Jose with an S, is a recent supporter of the seamless transit principle, Cities Association of Santa Clara County, because none of these entities controls the system, but wants to be able to raise their voices in support. As well as a great diversity of nonprofit groups and business and employer groups that are together raising their voices in support of a seamless system. So far, there have been a couple of transit agencies, including BART and the ferry agency too, and many individuals. As I mentioned, that this does not commit the city to taking any particular action, but it does help the city stay informed about actions that are moving forward to choose to separately support a seamless transit system. And I'll give you one example of something that is coming forward now. And in the relatively, and in the short term, that is, there's been a regional study for fare integration and coordination. That study started in 2019 before the pandemic. It has just come out with its recommendations, and it has 2 short-term recommendations, including that are beneficial potentially for transit use, and including specifically to the city. So one of these recommendations coming forward is a pilot Go Anywhere transit pass. So in the previous item, there was a little bit of frustration expressed that in the cities putting money for employees into a transit pass that only gets you access to Caltrain. So this pilot Go Anywhere pass would be a pass that would provide access to all of public transit, to Caltrain, to Samtrans, to the Dumbarton bus, and so on. And this would be piloted potentially as soon as 2022. And the other short-term recommendation from this fare study is free transfers, which makes public transit more convenient for people. And this regional study modeled that it would generate about 25,000 new transit riders, which is more than the ECR, more than the 22-522 bus. It's similar to flagship bus routes around the region. So this is not something, so signing on to the seamless transit principles doesn't cause the city to support it, but it would, the city would then consider items that are coming forward that are potentially beneficial and look at them and say, hey, do we want to support a Go Anywhere transit pass, for example, which is one example of something moving forward. Another example of something that will be moving forward in the next couple of years is a regional plan where we need to go. This would be something looking at a regional, the public transit system would be looking at a regional level as to, is our network complete, and does it take people where we want to go? And I'll make sort of the 2 last points. One is with regard to the fare study. With an individual civic hat, I serve on the Mpcc Policy Advisory Council, and with that hat, I've been chairing the advisory body to that study. So I know more details about that than the city council probably wants to know, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. And also, as I set up at the front, the Seamless Transit Principles is an initiative of Seamless Bay Area with the mission to transform the Bay Area's fragmented public transit into a world-class, unified, equitable, and widely used system by building a diverse movement for change and promoting the policy reforms to bring that about. And so with that, we'll be happy to take any questions.
Let's call for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item M4, approve an update to the Complete Streets Commission 2021-22 work plan and adopt resolution number 6674 to support seamless transit principles, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And our first speaker will be Brittany Baxter.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Just wanted to make a quick comment in support of the seamless transit principles. in my professional life, I work a lot with behavioral economics, and definitely a guiding principle there is if you want people to do kind of the right thing, it always helps to make it easy. And so I think as we look at the climate crisis ahead and some of our traffic and congestion problems here in Menlo Park, but really throughout the region, I love this vision for making it very easy to get to where you need to go without having to worry about transfers and different fares and do I have enough money on my Clipper card to make this transfer. So really glad that we're thinking about this at a more holistic level. What I also really like about the idea of these passes is that I think it makes it a little bit easier to make those incremental decisions about choosing transit over getting in your car for specific different trips that you might be looking to make. So even, this past weekend, we went to downtown San Carlos for dinner and we drove there because that was sort of our default thing that we do. But I saw the El Camino bus both there and on the way back. And I was like, it would be kind of equally easy for me to just hop on the bus and make that trip, given that there is increased frequency and, great service there running along El Camino. So just wanted to support a lot of these seamless principles and really excited for the future of transit here in the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Randy Avalos.
And the ideas of reducing transaction costs is.
Randy?
Hello?
Hi, Randy?
Hello? Chuck?
Hi, this is the Menlo Park City Council meeting. Did you have a comment on item M3?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, M4.
I wanted to thank Adina Levin for her great work on area transportation and reducing transaction costs for transportation. It's great. Love to see more bus routes and all that. My concern is I'm not quite sure of the ask. It seems more like a county kind of coordination. And is it the city going to be supporting the county? What's the actual ask from the city and commitment from the city? I'm just a little unclear on that. But overall, I love the movement here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So this will be the final call for public comment on item M4. And seeing no further hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Great, thank you, City Clerk Heron. So back to the council. Are there any questions or comments about the work plan? Councilmember Willison.
Ms. Levin, can you just confirm that the ask in terms of the seamless transit principles is just the city's support of the principles and that efforts will be ongoing, and then it's not committing to anything, it's just supporting the values and the principles laid out? Is that accurate?
Yes, there is a resolution that is in the staff report. It's the same resolution that was supported by the city of, Redwood City, East Palo Alto, and so on and so on. That is in support of the general principles, and then the city would, with those principles in mind, be able to separately decide to support things like the regional Go Anywhere transit pass pilot. But, like having a complete streets policy or Vision Zero policy, it doesn't commit the city to build any particular sidewalk. It's a direction for the city that can help orient it towards supporting other things that would benefit the city.
Thank you. Then with that, I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor Combs. Okay, I move to approve the update to the Complete Streets Commission work plan and adopt the seamless transit principles as laid out in the staff report.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. I would like to second it and just thank the commissioners for all the work that they do and staff.
Thank you, Ms. Levin, for the presentation. City Clerk Heron.
We have a motion on the floor by City Council Member Willison, and a second by Vice Mayor Nash to approve the update to the Complete Streets Commission 2021-22 work plan and adopt resolution number 6674 to support seamless transit principles as recommended by the Complete Streets Commission. Any further City Council question or discussion?
I have a question on the seamless transit principles. Is that meaning that the city is going to be taking an official position that, for instance, we want Caltrain to merge with BART or things of that nature? Can anyone answer that question for me?
Certainly not what I thought was happening, but I'll let Ms. Levin comment.
Okay, so yeah, that would certainly not set any expectation for the city council to take a specific position on a topic such as that. If there are institutional proposals coming forward to provide a more coordinated system, whether it was that one or any one of many other imaginable types of improvements to make the system more coordinated, then the city would make any such support for something moving at a regional level separately. This is not committing the city to any specific position on that, or any other specific way of achieving a more seamless transit system.
Great, I appreciate the clarification, and you can understand why I need to ask. So I appreciate it. So I'm fine with moving forward.
Thank you, City Council Member Mueller. Any further City Council question, discussion? Seeing none, by roll call vote, City Council Member Mueller.
Yes.
City Council Member Willison.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
And the motion passes with City Council Member Taylor absent. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk Heron. With that, we'll move on to informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the city in the staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the City Council. Informational items are not action items. However, a City Council member, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. City Clerk Heron, can you call for public comment on the informational items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Combs. So at this time, if any member of the public wishes to speak on item O1, City Council agenda topics for October through November of 2021, please engage that hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. So this will be the final call for public comment on item O1, tonight's informational item. Seeing no hands raised, Mayor Combs, you may continue.
Great, thank you, City Clerk Heron. Are there any questions regarding the informational item? No. All right, we'll go on to City Manager's reports. City Manager Jerome Robinson, do you have any reports?
Thank you, Mayor Combs. I do not have any reports tonight.
Thank you. City Council member reports. Does any member of the council have reports? Vice Mayor Nash.
Thank you. Just reporting out from our Peninsula Clean Energy meeting and offsite. There's two things that were notable. One is that PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, has just signed a 15-year solar plus storage agreement, and it's the first of its kind project for Peninsula Clean Energy to provide both solar and battery storage. And the other piece is that PCE has launched an income qualified home upgrade program, which provides turnkey, no cost electrification, efficiency, and other improvements to income qualified homeowners. And if anyone's interested in either program, the city's been doing a good job of advertising these or promoting these, and they're also available on, if you look at peninsulacleanenergy.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Nash. Any other council member reports? No, all right. Well, with that, we will adjourn at 9:01.